Everybody, welcome back. I'm Yumble, and this is my first quick build. A quick build, as I'm calling it, is a one-episode city. So single episode, single city, self-contained, all the ideas, all the city services, all of the things that make a city work in one shot. Welcome to the island city of Skilpadde. Now, Skilpadde is a Norwegian word, feel free to look that up, but I want to contain everything necessary for the city to function on the island. And I figured a good place to start was with the interchange. So for the next few minutes, it's going to be me sculpting this partial cloverleaf with, oddly enough, a 2-lane overpass. So that's kind of cool. I'll end up completing that, doing markings, things like that. The highway can continue on, though that's not what we're using it for here today. I'm under the assumption that one day there would be more. But for now, I really just want to get the bridge to the island completed with a highway connection and show a bit of that process and kind of pop in with some commentary periodically to let you know what I was thinking when I did what I did. This is my typical partial cloverleaf setup. I went with it would be an A4 partial cloverleaf for this one. I've got videos about the Parclo. Feel free to check those out if you're curious about what specifically I'm doing here. But really, I just wanted a solid highway connection, and the partial cloverleaf is still second to none, in my opinion. Space allowing. If you've got the space, go crazy. Partial cloverleaf for life. Enjoy the build. I'll be back in just a minute. Two of the best recent developments in city skylines, I say recent, but really for the last 1 to 2 years, two of the best changes have been involving intersection marking tool and node controller. So here I wanted to make use of that, as I do on all my interchanges. I wanted to show vehicles passing one another there. I wanted to firm up this connection, and the actual partial cloverleaf intersections are absolutely my favorite part. I love that you can use the map textures, so you can use the ruined texture, the grass texture, pavement, gravel, all of these different things can be incorporated into your intersections, so you can have cool little grass islands and things like that. If you've seen my other builds, then you know I make use of this all the time. It just adds so much life to an otherwise empty and kind of dead-looking, like ambiguous space where roads connect. So we can forego all that ambiguity and make it look much more complete. This section here, check it out. Adding crosswalks, adding lines. I'm thinking through it, and I knew that I wanted to continue that median. If you see the grass medians there, I love the grass medians with intersection marking tool because you can actually build some very true looking grass medians into your intersections. So it's a matter of drawing all the lines first. I have a video that's more specific to intersection marking tool. Feel free to check that out. But this is just one example where I've drawn all my solid lines, and then I'll have to go through and refine them. So cutting the lines one by one. It's kind of it's time consuming, but I also think it's one of the most gratifying things in City Skylines currently. You may disagree, that's okay. But I think it's one of the best things you can do is mark up those intersections to make it just that much more vibrant of a space. So here you can see I'm cutting the median. There's an obvious left turn being made. You will also notice I'm using some rather small roads. Virtually all of the networks in the city, all of the road networks at least, are going to be 16-meter wide roads, largely, which is a 2-lane bidirectional road in the game. So I've got that small relatively small, narrow overpass. We've got small roads coming off the highway. We are also going to have a fairly narrow bridge as well in just a moment. Enjoy the rest of these markings. I'll be back to talk about the bridge. Cool. So now that the interchange is complete, we have to figure out a way to gracefully get traffic onto the island. So this is going to be the main inlet for traffic going forward, is going to be this bridge that's happening. It's kind of cool, actually. There's a prop in the workshop, and it's this bridge from Croatia. It's this thing right here, this cable stay bridge, and it's based on a real world bridge. I forget the name of it, but it's unique because it's actually designed for a 16-meter wide road, whereas most of this type of prop that I see are designed for a 32-meter wide, like a very wide. The vanilla 4-lane or the vanilla 6-lane road is 32 meters wide, whereas the small vanilla roads are all 16 meters wide. So this is a cable stay bridge for a smaller, kind of de-emphasized road, and that fits the motif that I'm going for here. So basically, you place it over top using Move It, square it up, get the heights correct. You know, I just figured this was a good way to get the bridge going initially, because it is just for aesthetics, and later I'll end up removing the pillars from below. As long as there's a cable stay, pylon with the cables coming off it, you don't need those pillars underneath anymore. Which implies maybe there's a reason to use this in real life. Maybe the reason is you want to consolidate all the pillars into one convenient giant pillar. I don't know. They're said to be less expensive than like a suspension bridge. So I think that cable stays are becoming a more popular option. I just think they look really cool. I remember the first time I drove into Boston over the, I forget what the bridge is called, but it's this giant cable stay bridge, and they light it up at night. It's beautiful. A little network, little network multi-tool there. Just synthesize that curved road out of nothing. You love to see it. But yeah, I think that this was a really good way to kind of initiate the island and get everything, get the aesthetic squared away for getting cars across the bridge. think a good way to start an area is to pick some landmarks and really decide what the character of that district is, or what the history of it is. And this is these are some older buildings, right? So this is kind of an area that's been settled for a while. And I wanted the road network to reflect that. Hindsight is 2020. I built an entire gridded network, and I was like, I hate this. I looked at it and I said, I hate it. So you'll see here, there's a bit of a jump. It took me a little while to decide how I wanted to start the layout, and I went with this. It kind of looks like a hand or something. Kind of looks like lines on a palm. I wanted the roads to be branching, diverging, converging, as if made by pedestrians, as if made by the early inhabitants of the city. And then maybe it turns into a bit of grid. But I wanted to start off with some mess. Also, notice that I've turned off, in the bottom left there's the snapping panel. I turned off all of the snapping except for angle. So the initial angle I can snap to a 90-degree angle if I want when initiating a road. But other than that, I really don't want it to snap to anything. I want it to be very more organic than what I usually do. I found it's really hard actually for me to not build symmetrically. And what you're about to see here is an exercise in me building kind of a mini cloverleaf city interchange. Actually, I was in New York City recently, and after going over wasn't the Brooklyn Bridge. It might have been the Brooklyn Bridge. I'm not sure. It was in that area. It was either the Brooklyn or the Manhattan Bridge, one or the other. And we got to the other side, and there was a bit of an interchange to get down to ground level. And I said, oh, well, that's cool. That's a good way to kind of siphon off traffic so that they're not all forced down the arterial, down the main way of the city. So I wanted to replicate something like that here. And this is kind of an A-B cloverleaf, which a few videos ago, I bashed it. But this is not a highway interchange. This is not like a major interchange even. It's just a really good way to siphon off a bit of the industrial traffic and a bit of the residential traffic away from the heart of this island city that we're beginning. It gets cleaner as time goes on. I swear I clean it up a little bit. I want it to be messy, but not hideous. And it gets refined over time, I promise.
Don't cry.
So at this point, I wanted to start deciding on where our island residents are going to live. And I've got these just various condos, various sort of more modern-looking buildings to contrast the older city core that we've already got going. So you can see we've got these museums, churches, whatnot, older city-type buildings. I wanted to contrast that with modern development that was allowed to happen outside of that city core. So on the outskirts of those older buildings that make up the tourist area of the city, the residents can have, the residents, the people that are visiting. There's going to be a few hotels, some businesses, some shops, things like that. But the old town at the center is kept a bit more sacred. So those modern developments are somewhat kept away. And the center is going to be reserved for kind of more parks and greenery and walkable areas in between those older buildings. I thought that would be a neat kind of island touch to the whole thing. At this point, I wanted to make some decisions regarding the utilities on the island. So we're going to have a water treatment plant included on the island, and you'll be able to see it from the bridge. I think that's okay. The other side of the island would probably be good for ports, for shipping, things like that. So I would tend to keep this away from the ports probably. But yeah, this is an inland water treatment plant. I forget if this is the Eco one. I believe this came with the Harbor update for the game. What's it called? Sunset Harbor. Yeah, so this would have come with Sunset Harbor, either the update or the DLC. I don't remember. I also opted, by the end of this, to put our recycling center right next to it, just to consolidate the more filth-producing parts of the island, I guess. If there's any dirtiness coming from the trash or the water treatment or anything like that, I wanted to keep that kind of relegated under the bridge almost. So just there's traffic driving by it, but nobody has to live next to it, is the point. I also wanted to figure out power, and these end up going away. Don't worry, this was a fun experiment. But the spaces under the turbines currently, I really wanted to use as parks. And it occurred to me that maybe it wouldn't be as fun having a park under a wind turbine. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that they're somewhat loud. I haven't heard one in person, actually. I've never been close enough to a turbine to experience what it sounds like. But maybe you wouldn't want one directly overhead when you're walking around the nice island park. So those end up getting moved out of sight. But yeah, that's the utility system. We've got a We've got a recycling center. We've got a water treatment plant. We've got water being pumped from another... There's another spot where I put the water pump a few minutes ago. But that is the general idea. Another important decision to be made is where the city services are going to go. And the good thing about this island is that you really don't need more than maybe one or two types of each building. When I say services, I'm talking about police, fire, medical, healthcare, death care, etc. Basically, one small version of that building. You know how there's a police station and a police department? You can basically use the smaller version and keep it on the island, if that's the only part of your city. Sometimes they will stray from their paths and go flying across the grid to help somebody out across the map, but in this situation, they will be stuck on the island, pretty much. So they can just have a small precinct or a small hospital or what have you. So I think I did 2 death care buildings just because one is like the vanilla cemetery. I did 1 hospital, 1 fire department, 1 police department. That should be enough for the whole area. Something else that I've struggled with that I'm trying to now fix in my gameplay is dealing with elevation. So here we've kind of got this sheer cliff wall with the cliff texture coming off it where this building sits because of the change in elevation. So I opted to take a quay wall, which is usually used on the water, to kind of cover up the cliff, and I figured that was a somewhat realistic solution to the problem of that sheer cliff hanging out in the middle of the city. They probably would have walled it off at some point, put some stones in front of it, what have you. So that was my solution to it as I try to improve my skills at dealing with elevation. This area was a similar deal, that little partial cloverleaf that opens up the city when traffic comes off the bridge. That is also a big exercise in changes in elevation that we're looking at here. So I'm really trying to integrate that into my gameplay and get a bit more comfortable with it. this point, it occurred to me that I also want to include a bit of a bike highway. So not completely separate from the cars, but I wanted a bi-directional bike lane to be included in one of the roads. So that residents can go from one residential area through the city center to the other side of the island on their bike if they want, which is really great for people going to work or people trying to get around in general. So I figured I'd offer the residents that courtesy. I also wanted to add a bus terminal. A bus depot, so that I can have a bus loop going around the island. Earlier, I added in the top right now, a inner city bus connection. So we'll have buses coming across the bridge at 60 people per bus, tourists, residents, otherwise they'll all be moving in by bus, so I figured I'd give them a local bus line to just navigate the island on. If they want to bike, they can, but really any excuse to not bring a car is okay. Don't forget, people will move in via inner city bus terminal. People will move in via harbor or train station. So any intercity connection that you have is a good thing. No one's moved into the city yet. I haven't unpaused the game. So once I unpause the game, I will have given them an option to move in by bus. And a lot of them do, actually. There are a bunch of cars that show up, but mainly each bus is filled with 60 people. In theory, that's like 30 to 60 cars that don't move into the city. Speaking of cars, here they come. Everyone, thank you very much for watching this quick build of Skilpadde. I really enjoyed going over my process and kind of having a self-contained project that I knew I could do in one episode and one day, and just get it done and kind of share my thoughts on how I build. Please subscribe here if you're curious about how I do things in City Skylines. I have tons of tutorials, interchange builds, things like that. We also have a community Discord. Feel free to join the Discord if you'd like. And if you're into live streaming video action, check me out on twitch.tv/YumbleTV. Everyone, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for hanging out. I've been Yumble. I'll see you in the next stream or the next video.